Hey everybody, so today we're at Quails Winery, one of the oldest established wineries in the Okanagan. As far as an established winery goes, Quails has kept this really nice, quaint, comfortable feel to it. You walk in the tasting room and you're welcomed with open arms, and it's just a comfortable place to be, somewhere you just want to hang out. So come along, we're going to interview Tony Stewart, hang out with Grant Stanley, and have a good visit. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode on our wine road trip series. We're here today at beautiful sunny Quails Estate Winery, and joined with me is and my pleasure to meet and introduce Tony Stewart, the proprietor of Quails. Thank you so much for having us, Tony. It's my pleasure. So the Quails Winery has been in the Stewart family for several generations. Why don't you just give us a little bit of history and highlight that for us?
Okay, well, the property was purchased in 1956 by my dad, and he was the first grape grower on the property. And a number of years later, in 1989, he and my brother Ben decided to get into the wine business, and that kind of brought the second generation into what was a new business, but on the same property.
Okay.
And so today, Quails is a second generation family business with myself, my brother, and my two sisters.
Okay.
And we are, really enjoying what we're doing.
Awesome. And we've got this beautiful, picturesque kind of house cabin behind us here. How long has this been on the property, or what's kind of the story behind this old building?
Well, the Allison House, which was built in 1872 by the McDougall, who was a builder around here, but the Allisons moved in here.
Okay.
And they this was their homestead for their ranch, and they were pioneers in that they would come out here, and Susan Allison would be left for long periods of time on her own.
Okay.
And back then there was nobody else here other than the local natives that would come through and visit her, and she developed quite a solid friendship with a fellow who was with the local tribe that was in this area, and she wrote about it.
Okay.
So the Susan Allison is noted in the Canadian monuments as a woman of national significance, and so the homestead, we're in the process of trying to apply to get that listed as a historical site within the Canadian Register.
Well, that's really interesting. And you mentioned earlier that you've got some changes coming up, particularly with this area at Quails Why don't you highlight those for us? Certainly have to offer.
So Mike, what we're planning to do here is incorporating more of the Okanagan theme into the Allison House. So everything that you see inside will, wherever possible, be from the valley. And then outside, we're changing it into more of a park and pavilion area where we can do the farmers markets and try and provide a little bit of a history. We're going to bring out some of the old implements that were on the farm, back even probably in between the Allisons and ourselves, but certainly before my dad, and have those on display so people can get an idea of what it was like to farm out in the Okanagan back in the early part of the last century.
Excellent. Well, just that said, I mean, along with kind of my theme on the website, Quails and I find it really, what I like about them a lot is they share their love, as I do, for people, wine, food, and all things made passionately. So what else can you show us at the winery?
Well, I'd love to take you down to meet Grant Stanley, our winemaker, and get a chance to talk about the 2009 whites that are going to be released very shortly.
Excellent. Well, let's head on over there then. So we're here with Grant Stanley. He's the senior winemaker here at Quails.
Senior, that makes me sound so old.
Excellent. Senior winemaker here at Quails. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
my
you
pleasure.
too. Yeah.
We're here in the wine library of Quails I mean, there's an amazing selection here. I'd love to spend an afternoon in here. I don't know.
And just with you and a glass, and
exactly.
You want to need a corkscrew because most of them are screw cap now.
Yeah, somebody can roll me out at the end of the day. There you go. So why don't you tell us a little bit? I mean, you love talking about your winemaking, especially your Pinot. We've got these amazing barrels in the background. Just tell us about, how you got into winemaking and what you love about it, and again about your Pinot and stuff.
Okay, sure. Well, I've been here since 2003, so it's been an extended stay.
Yeah.
For a winemaker, 7 years is actually a nice long time. You get an impact. You get an opportunity to really kind of, have your say. the growing of the grapes is obviously there. You know, you hear it all the time from winemakers, right? It all begins and ends in the vineyard.
Yeah, for sure.
Blah 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 blah. But the reality is that actually there is a huge amount of the material is your master to this game. So I'm very fortunate in that I've come here and I'm working with 20-year-old vines, a whole bunch of different clones of Pinot Noir that were imported by my employers here, 20 years ago. So I've got I got a good start point. From then we get things into the winery, and I've got a half a dozen guys that work with us here that have been with me since the get-go. That makes a big difference, building a serious
solid
team, all grown men, no teenagers, no kids. No,
awesome. And so, Pinot Noir, you guys have this crazy wild yeast or indigenous
you know
yeast
what?
program?
It's an indigenous yeast. I'm glad you said indigenous, because wild makes it sound like this crazy party that's going on in here all the time. And there is a crazy party going on in here time, but it's the wild yeast thing is, and we've done the research, so we know that we're not just talking out of our whatever's here. We know we've got the facts on the ground. What we've got is a whole bunch of yeasts that live within these confines, and they're all effectively a product of previous year's fermentations. So we've got vineyard yeasts that have taken up residence here. We've got yeasts that are that were freeze dried and came out of a package from France and the Rhone Valley and Germany, and they live up there in the walls and that as well. And even though we clean the place every year, these guys, they find a hole and a crevice somewhere to kind of overwinter. And effectively, that population, every single time, every vintage, that population has a chance to kind of have a little war with itself.
Absolutely.
And that's where all the complexities and the cool things really begin in the wine. You end up with a long period of time, a long lag phase between when you're wanting the fermentation to take place and when it actually begins to take place, and some really cool aromatics and some really interesting things happen in the ferment at that point. And then the beautiful thing is there isn't actually one super dominant yeast, and we did the DNA genetic research on the yeasts at various forms of fermentation in the last few years, and we found that there's a whole bunch of different yeasts at work, and they're all doing their bit. And then eventually there's like the big killer super yeast that wins out at the end and does the complete finish of the fermentation. But for us, I guess the thing that we love about it is it gives us a lot of time on skins. So if you take a big pile of fruit and you dump a big population of yeast in there, you're going to get fermentation over and complete really fast. You guys being home winemakers, you understand that stuff. Whereas with me, I'm just sitting there, we're waiting. We got a little bit of CO2, a little bit of activation, but nothing full blown for about 2 or 3 days. And
I'm
then
assuming
boom!
that just grows the complexities and more intricacies in the
Exactly,
wine.
And I mean, the style that we're trying to make with Pinot Noir is kind of what I describe as ethereal. It's sort of, not high-toned fruit. A lot of people don't understand that because people love fruit, right? And we all talk about cherries, and we all talk about, all the different fruit aromas that you get with Pinot Noir. But if you taste, real serious, beautiful Pinot Noir, very rarely do you get hit by one single dimension of fruit, whether it be cassis or anything. It's usually multiple hits. Things are coming at you from every angle, and it's a lot of spice, and there's some wood, and there's some smoke, and then there's the fruit over here in the corner, and we're looking for that angle. So we, in a lot of ways, with our wild ferment program, we subdue fruit. We actually stomp on fruit, and we say, no, we're not going to let you take over, and we want the wine to be more vinous.
Absolutely. More food-friendly characters, things like that. Now, another wine you guys make, and there's not a whole lot of other places to make it, but your Optima. Tell me about that. What's this, rotten grapes or something like that? How's
rotten
that
grapes.
work?
It's noble rot, though. Let's not forget about that. It's noble rot, and even rot has the opportunity to be, up
the
here.
upper class.
Absolutely, upper class. So, sociologically speaking, and what it is it's a raisoning sort of situation. So we don't have great botrytis conditions here in the Okanagan, thank goodness.
Absolutely.
It's dry and it's sunny, and so in actual fact we have to go out there and spray water and encourage botrytis on these grapes. We do that several times throughout the season, and then once the spores sort of take hold, they really just basically take all the moisture out of the grapes. We do a couple of picks, the dirty pick and the clean pick. And the dirty pick ends up being, where we get all the real good stuff, the real good flavors, and the real interesting stuff. I often say that if I put some on a picture of these grapes on the label, we wouldn't sell a single pot.
There you go.
Because they are pretty decimated, and there's just raisins with a little bit
it's
of
got this crazy concentrated sugar and fruit in it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's neat, and it works well because, like all of the wines here in the Okanagan, the major ingredient and the massive ingredient is acid. I love acid, so you can quote me on that. It's basically the acid is what carries the flavor in all the wines here.
Yeah.
And when you talk about them being food friendly or working with food, that's really the essential
Brings
ingredients.
the balance to the wine.
Big blousy wines generally kind of get washed out when you eat food,
For sure.
or they just knock you over with alcohol. We're trying to sort of have wines that have some alcohol balance, some acid balance, and that.
Yeah.
I mean, a great wine is a balanced wine to me.
Awesome.
So, yeah, that's kind of the optima thing. When going back to the Pinot, with Pinot here, we're now, I guess we're up to, we've got about 9 different clones.
Yeah.
We have a barrel program with about 5 different Burgundy cooperages here.
Yeah.
We have different fruit components coming from different areas of the vineyard, and we throw all of that in, and it just gives you choices at blending so that you can create these super wines like the Stewart Family Reserve Pinot.
For sure.
And then the other wines, the Quails Gate Pinot ends up being something that everybody can get their teeth into at $24 a bottle.
Decent price point, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked enough about what you're making here, and thank you so much for sharing your passion with everybody about what you're. I mean, you're obviously passionate about what you're making. It really reflects in your wines. So, I mean, my mouth is watering. We got to go taste some of what you're
wines,
making.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, we can't just bash on all day without actually having a drink.
So let's head over to the tasting room.
Sounds like a good
Thank
idea.
you very much, Grant. So of course, tasting wine is what it's all about. I mean, we can talk all about the making, the vineyards, this, that, and everything, but I mean, it all comes down to what's in your glass and what you get to enjoy it and who you're enjoying it with. And I mean, I get to enjoy it with 2 pretty awesome guys today as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit what we're tasting today, and we'll go from there.
Well, it's one of the winery specialties. It's something that we've been working on as a special project for the last few years, and it's the 2008 Chenin Blanc. So I think Tony could tell you a little bit about how we began with Chenin here.
Absolutely.
Interesting history on this. Back in the 70s, our dad was looking at a pilot project with a winery that he was growing for at the time. They brought in from UC Davis, Chenin Blanc, Gewürztraminer, Merlot, Pinot Noir, and Chardonnay. And it was just to see how those vinifers would perform in this climate. And subsequent to that, we ended up planting a little bit more, and have since planted a little bit more, and it's become a flagship of the company.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, the beautiful thing about Chenin is that it gives an opportunity for us to express, our place and our terroir amongst a world of Chenin.
Yeah,
We've got workhorse Chenin in South Africa, and you've got the Loire with their nice sort of sticky sweetness and everything. But we make ours in more of that sort of tight, crisp, fresh acid style, with lots of food-friendly aspect in mind. When the wine comes in, it has a huge acid, like 9 grams per liter.
Yeah.
And we don't adjust it. We don't do anything special with it. We really just try and get the fermentation done with very cold temperatures and show it in the glass for what it is. There's a small amount of barrel in here, a little bit of neutral oak as well, about 10%. And that's just really there to just round out the palate and kind of build some texture in the wine. Yeah, but otherwise, it's an expression of fresh and fruitiness.
And as far as white wine goes, Chenin is a beautiful wine to express terroir as well, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It is. It certainly shows its place.
And is there a lot of other vineyards in the Okanagan doing Chenin Blanc? Are you guys kind of...
We would be one of, I guess, maybe 3
really?
that come to mind that make Chenin. And I think in terms of the volume of it, we believe in it enough that we've kept on planting it over the last
few
years.
So another one of those varieties to look out for in the Okanagan.
Yeah.
It works so well with the seafood from the West Coast, and we've always said this is the best Okanagan wine.
Yeah, this would go beautifully with seafood.
Yeah, if you love oysters, fresh oysters, Cushies,
getting too close to lunchtime, you're talking about
exactly.
that.
Well, you mentioned a little earlier on, it's a breakfast wine.
Try to say breakfast.
You gotta have it. The wine's really carried forward.
Oh, it'll wake you up in a hurry, that's for sure. Yeah, it's a beautiful wine. Nice racy lemon acidity, just a nice clean food-friendly tartness in the back end.
It wakes your palate up.
Absolutely, gets you going. I mean, my mouth is watering just tasting it right now.
Absolutely, that's what we're looking
for. It just gets you going, for sure.
Juiciness, lots of interesting aromatics. And the beautiful thing is it's got a very low pH. All that acid's holding the wine together. I expect that these wines will be holding together for at least 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, and it's so fresh and clean. It just, it's a beautiful wine. So what else do we have for us?
Well, let's move on.
Pinot Noir, and like we've been talking about earlier, the Pinot Noir at Quails Gate is kind of their standby. It's what you guys are well known for.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a variety that we've believed for a very long time that it's the correct variety for the soil types and the conditions here on our site and in the Okanagan. And this is the Stewart Family Reserve, which is the flagship product there.
Okay.
Yeah, we make this in limited quantities,
Yeah.
so we don't define quality in the vineyard. We have vineyards now that are sort of giving us grapevine age, so we're really just trying to express what's out there. We do that with well fermentation, long skin contact. The barrel program is a big part of that as well. You would have picked up quite a bit of smoke and what I call classy, expensive spice. That comes with some really nice barrels in there as well. But essentially, the New World Pinot Noirs can be very, very fruity. And like I mentioned to you before, we're trying to subdue that and sort of build something a little more ethereal in texture.
Absolutely, kind of food friendly. I mean, this is almost a slightly gamey wine. This would go really nice with duck or something like that, or lamb. It's a very nice wine. Just and the aromas it's putting off they're reflective of what you were talking about.
Yeah, complex, not easy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the key thing with Pinot Noir is it is a food wine, and the program of the winery is about building in food so that you can see the wines perform here on site with the Pinot Noir, the Chenin.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and even on the palate, again, this is making me want food. This one, it's got a nice clean tartness to the back end as well. It's mouth-watering, and extremely food-friendly. Nice bit of pepperiness to it, some vegetable aspects. Yeah, it's got all kinds of things going on. It's definitely a baby right now as well.
I mean, we tend to sort of like thinking that these wines will be really hitting their straps, the Stewart Family Reserve Series, in about 4 or 5 years.
For sure.
But we can't do all the aging for you. Yeah. Sadly, you have to buy a case and stick it under your house, or cellar it in order to get that.
to get to that, just in case to get to that point.
No, but that's a really good point. Is that a lot of times you bring home a couple bottles of wine, and you don't really get to see it develop. And one of the nice things about getting 6 bottles, 12 bottles of wine is you watch it develop and see what Grant's talking about.
For sure.
3 years of age.
It makes wine so interesting in that manner. Yeah, and this one's got so much depth, so many different layers to it, things like that. Yeah, and over time, what it's going to express. Excellent. So there we have it. That's Quails Gate for you. Thanks so much for watching the show today. And a special thanks, Grant. Thank you so much. It's great to meet you for having us. Tony, really appreciate your time. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're in the Okanagan, Kelowna area, Mount Boucherie area, make sure you stop at Quails Gate. Meet some of these really friendly faces. I mean, Grant's going to talk your ear off and teach you everything you want to know about wine. Come in. They've got a beautiful patio restaurant. I mean, the view behind us, I'm looking out the windows right now. We're up on the lake, the rolling vineyards, everything. Picturesque stop, so make sure you stop by. Thanks for watching the episode today, and we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.